Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 26 of our podcast here. Unfortunately, this week we're not joined by Brandon because he is busy with schoolwork, but instead we do have Josh joining us, so as well as Justin. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Hello, what's up?
Oh, hi again.
Again, yeah,
Again.
for
Again.
the
Yeah, it's the
second
second.
time,
This is
right?
my second guest appearance.
True,
I've been
true,
resurrected from
true.
the dead
Yeah,
members.
before we get started, I will just ask for any questions or feedback if you want to leave those down in the comments below. If not, you can join our Discord and ask us there. But yeah, let's get to it. What's everyone been playing this past week? I feel like I'm going to know what the main thing is, but yeah.
I guess I
Yes,
can
Justin,
start.
do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. I guess the main game obviously has been Resident Evil Village. I picked that up at day one on Friday. Started playing it right away. Um, not obviously not a too long game, so I beat it within 2 days. I beat it Saturday night, and yeah, we're gonna be talking more about our impressions later on. But yeah, generally I enjoyed it quite a bit. Other than that, throughout the week I've been playing some more Fall Guys. Um, I don't know. I feel like just during the summer, I play a lot of multiplayer games. It's where I talk to my friends more. So we've been playing a lot more games again. So we've been playing that. A bit of Rocket League, some GTA Online, some CS:GO, and we've actually been playing some Jackbox, which is like just it's
Oh,
just a
nice.
casual game, but it's it's fun like when you're just chilling with friends playing a bit of that. So yeah, a pretty chill week for me. Nothing too crazy. Yeah.
Cool. What about you, Josh?
I mean, other than obviously the obvious one being Resi, I actually replayed Seven, uh, across like the sort of week leading up to launch, and played. It was actually my first time on normal because apparently I fucked up and picked easy on my first time playing through it a few years ago, which actually wasn't that
Accidentally.
easy, surprisingly. Actually, well, that's what we all say. Um, but yeah, no, that was cool. I played the DLCs as well, which were the DLCs are weird because it's like they have like this totally different vibe from the main game that feel like these weird out of place, almost like I mean, it's cool from like they're different vibe is cool, but it also feels weirdly out of place how connected they are to the main sort of story. So, but they were cool. They're cool to sort of see that. I played like some of the mini games on the side. But yeah, other than that, I played obviously Destiny. Had its new season on Tuesday, which had a really rough launch. It was like a good 4 or 5 hours before I could actually play properly. I think. Uh, and that seems cool so far. Minus the transmog system is shit, but that's it's not a Destiny podcast. But yeah, no. Other than that, I think that's pretty much the main two games outside of Resi Village. Which obviously, yeah, as you said, we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, I've got Returnal by the way.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
Haven't played
nice.
it. I was planning to play that before we started talking, and that didn't happen. I was like, that would have been nice just to have thrown in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, but my plan is to get to that soon. Since I played Resi, played that in between now and Ratchet, I think. But yeah, that's my list.
Yeah, so same with you guys. I have been playing Resi Village. I think we've all beaten it, so we'll have our full impressions later on. But aside from that, it's mainly been stuff like Apex. I've been really getting into the 3v3 mode with some mates. So, like today, I think we probably played like 3 or 4 hours of that this afternoon because we were all off work. So, we just sat down and played quite a bit of that. And then I booted up earlier this afternoon Ratchet and Clank Quest for Booty on PS Now because I want to try and play through some of the PS3 ones before Rift Apart comes out. So we'll see how that goes. And I did also boot up Assassin's Creed Valhalla just because the new DLC came out and reminded me to go back and play that game because I have not touched it in months. Just because it's one of those that I know I'm going to be like chipping away at for probably a year or two because it's just such a big game. But yeah, I've played a little bit of that, and that's about it. Really, some League and that kind of thing, but nothing too crazy. I was gonna play some more Returnal, but I didn't really have too much time this week because I've been pretty busy at work. But hopefully, gonna get back to that next week because I think I'm pretty much near the end, but I definitely want to go back to that one. So yeah. But moving on from that, out this week, obviously, as Josh said, there is the new season of Destiny 2. I'm not sure what it's called because I haven't paid much attention.
It's
But
season
yeah,
of the
that
Splicer.
season of
If
the
you want,
Splicer, there we go.
yeah,
So that's out this week for
fancy
all
one.
you Destiny fans. But aside from that, probably the biggest release this week is Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which is on PS4, Xbox One, and PC. It's like a remaster of the first 3 games. I might be picking that one up. We'll see. I don't know about you guys, but yeah, it's a little bit expensive, so I might hold off. But that's really it. There's not too much out this week because I think we're going to be seeing a lot more bigger releases later on in the year. But moving on from there, we have got a decent chunk of gaming news this week. The first bit of that is EA did announce that EA Play is returning this summer. It's going to be a bit later than most of the E3 schedule. It's going to be happening on the 22nd of July. They haven't said too much about what's going to be at the event. I'd imagine some sports stuff. Battlefield will probably show up there. Maybe some Star Wars and some few other bits. But yeah, did you guys have any?
Not too much. I just think I thought it was kind of weird that it's happening. Or I guess I was surprised that it's happening so late. Compared to all the other, or I guess compared to like when E3 usually is, which is like mid-June, and this is like late July basically. So I don't know. It seems kind of weird, but at the end of the day, I don't know. It's their business strategy, I guess. Just I don't know, announcing it or having their EA Play later. I don't know how it's gonna affect Battlefield. In June, I guess they'll probably just show a little bit in June and then show off more in July with their EA Play event.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like I don't know, maybe more focus on their games if it's a month later. Which I always question how devs or how publishers work that out. Like, is it better to capitalize on the hype that everyone's like going around, or is it better to wait until things have kind of hopefully quietened down and then go for a potentially quieter spot? Unless they're gonna have some kind of like, beta for Battlefield that's like, oh, and it's live now, like right as in July. Yeah, no, I just want Dead Space back. I don't know if they probably won't do that, but
Well,
It's fine. We've got the Callista
yeah,
protocol
Callisto
or whatever
Pro,
it's called. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, it's okay. The weird thing's about like, I mean, it's cool because it's made by. Is it published by EA, or is it
No,
just
no,
the,
it's
No,
PUBG
it's
people.
just the
Yeah.
devs? Okay, yeah. The weird thing about that is apparently it's. I heard it, but I don't know if it's true. But it was like set in the PUBG universe or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
we talked about
apparently
that, I
it's
think.
loose. Yeah, we talked about it
Yeah,
on the podcast. Yeah.
That's so weird to me. I mean, I don't know what the kind of overall vibe of the game will be. Maybe it's just more like
It's set like 300 years later.
Yeah, they said
exactly.
it's like
it could just
so
be like completely
loose.
unrelated, more or less. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
from what I've seen, they were kind of like, yeah, they said they gave us this timeline of the PUBG world, and we just kind of went as far as we could because they don't really want to be a part of it, but they have to because they're being funded by them, I guess. So, but yeah, I think for me with the EA event, like, I think it's kind of a given that it was going to happen. It is a bit odd; it's happening so late. Like, I can understand EA might want to spread it out a little bit, but over a month after all these other events are going to be going down is a little bit weird. I think the whole, like, I'll go into it here, but obviously EA did talk about how the Battlefield reveal is going to be happening in June. So this probably means we're going to get a proper event for Battlefield, I would hope, in June, where we get more than just like a cinematic trailer. We actually get some gameplay and stuff. Because I think it would be a real downer for the whole community, really, if they just kind of reveal the game and then don't talk about it for a month and a half. So hopefully we'll hear something else, especially since there's been a lot of leaks going on with this Battlefield trailer. The whole audio for it like leaked I think it was earlier in the week on like Monday or something. And like the band that is got their music in the trailer, they said that the trailer was coming this week, so it seems like there's some weird stuff going on with the reveal there, and it got pushed back a bit. But alongside that information, we did also learn that it is going to be coming to PS4 and Xbox One as well as next gen and PC. They didn't say like specifically, but they did kind of hint that it's going to have less players on current gen as well as less destruction, and obviously it's not going to look as good on those consoles. I'd imagine this is going to be kind of similar to what we had with BF3 and BF4 on PS3 and Xbox 360, where the player count was about half. I think it was 32 players instead of 64, and you didn't have as many of the bigger maps with the Levolution and that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see what that means for crossplay in Battlefield, especially because they're basically making it out like this is going to be a reboot for the franchise and be more of like a live service kind of starting point for them to add to for years and years. Kind of like what Warzone is, I imagine, that's what they're going for with Battlefield now. But we'll see. Yeah, what did you guys think about this?
I was actually surprised that that it's coming out on PS4 and Xbox One. I really didn't think it would. I thought they would just focus on the next gen. But at the same time, like I kind of get it, just because like um, the next gen consoles are still relatively new. The player bases aren't very high, especially now. Like there's a lot of people still struggling to find a next gen console. At least here in Canada. I don't know like if it's the same for you
Yeah, I
guys
think it's
still,
pretty
but
bad everywhere. Yeah.
yeah, okay. So like yeah, it's still really hard to find the next gen consoles, and I guess they don't want to just leave that whole player base behind because they're still like the large majority on last gen consoles. So I guess it makes sense. I really hope that like us on the next gen consoles that we can play with the people on last gen. Just because I have like tons of friends that still play on last gen. I don't think they'd be getting a next gen console anytime soon. It'd be kind of disappointing if I couldn't play with them. So yeah, I hope, but at the same time, I could see that obviously it wouldn't happen.
Yeah,
No,
Josh.
it's
Yeah.
interesting because yeah, no, I was just saying it's interesting because like I wonder if that was like a. I mean, I don't know, obviously it's coming out this year, but I wonder if that's like a response to. If it feels like it would be too late to be a response to like uh the demand of the fact that there's people aren't getting next gen consoles, whether they were like in the last few months like we need to put this on last gen as well, but that feels like that would be probably quite a heavy undertaking. Though I mean it is most of the year. It depends how easy it is to scale down for last gen. Um, yeah, no, it's interesting. I want to say crossplay could be a thing, but I guess it depends on like the. It would obviously be specific modes, obviously. And I don't know how that would work in terms of if you. I think did you say one like less destruction or something? Was one thing.
Yeah, that was what
Uh,
they were kind of saying, is that next gen is allowing them to do more destruction and stuff. So what that would mean for previous gen, I don't really know.
yeah, so it could mean that they can't do that then if it's too baked into the maps or whatever. Which would obviously be a shame, you know. I don't know if that would like I mean because I feel like that would also affect sales then because there'll be people that probably like might not be
Yeah.
interested but then might buy it just because it's a game they can play crossplay on. Um, it'd be interesting to see how how different it is between the two versions. But yeah, no, it's hopefully there will be crossplay. Considering pretty much every other game with multiplayer has got it, so yeah.
Yeah, I think it was kind of the way they've been talking about Battlefield is that they want this to be kind of a starting point. So I think if they were to have it fully supported on previous gen, you'd be kind of limiting where the game can go in the future because obviously you don't want to have to support these already 7, 8 year old consoles even further down the line because you're really limiting yourself. So I think the idea from the start was for it to be a next gen Battlefield, and maybe the shortages have kind of said to them, hey, we need to at least put something to do with this game on last gen, otherwise it's just not going to sell I mean, obviously it's going to sell, but it's not going to be to the same extent it would be on those consoles. Obviously, the PC market's probably going to help it boost its player numbers quite a bit. I think most Battlefield fans do play on PC anyway, so I'd imagine that'll have full crossplay with next gen and stuff. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the differences are going to be. Hopefully, we hear something about that when it does get revealed next month, but it's not too far away now, probably 3 or 4 weeks, so hopefully, we'll hear something soon. But moving on from that, Bungie enabled crossplay earlier this week in Destiny 2 by mistake, it seems, which is allowing some players to get a preview of it. I don't know if Josh, if you want to talk about this one, because I don't know too much, but I imagine you know what's going on
It,
here.
yeah, it's weird. I mean, I said that the season had like a really rough launch. Like it was people couldn't get in for hours, but the people that could get in, specifically, it seemed to be Xbox and PC. They've added in this season. And if you go, I think it is on. Well, I don't know if it's on like your friends list, but it's on the clan page, and anyone that's in your clan has like a platform icon next to it, which obviously going by other games is a sign of like it's a it signifies what platform people are on.
Mm.
Uh, on my, I mean, I don't know about the clan that I'm in, whether there's anyone on Xbox or PC, but everyone had the PlayStation icon. But from my understanding, anyone on Xbox or PC could see the PC icon and the Xbox icon, and they could literally join up. I don't know if there's any issues with it. People said they could obviously join, and it was seemingly fine. I think they are actually disabling that with an update tonight. But they said if you want to use it, you could test it out in the meantime.
Yeah.
But it's not meant to be coming in until next season. But they said they're going to do like internal and alpha like rollouts this season that they'll obviously, I assume, invite different people to. But yeah, it's a funny thing because it's like it's weird to see how seemingly like it just works like perfectly fine, and yet it's not going to be coming until like August 24th is the next season, I think. So yeah, it's class I said I wasn't able to test it. I think someone did bring up a good point. I was like, probably best not to try it in case it screws anything up. So I probably wouldn't try it if I had the option to, just in case. But it is interesting to see that that's. I think it's a good sign, at least at the moment, that it's working seemingly like pretty well. Besides the fact that the servers took a massive hit when it came, but I don't know if those two are related, because obviously if it's still live now, you would think that the servers would still be having problems. And from my understanding, besides some weird crashes that people have got, there's a crash people have got where if you had like 40 friends online, it would like on the game would crash. So you had to delete people, or they would have to appear offline.
Right.
And that would be a solution, workaround for it. Yeah, it's really weird. So I don't know if crossplay is the one causing like the server issues or the crashes or whatever, but yeah, that seems like it probably will be fixed tonight. Yeah, funny issue, but cool that it's seemingly working without too many issues.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine a lot of those problems did arrive from it kind of being added onto their servers, onto the public end of things. If you, like they said, they're doing more external testing and things for this feature, I'd imagine that's probably why they had a lot of problems. But it's good to see that from the people that did try it, it seems to be working. So I will most likely be giving it a go once it does come out, because I don't know whether I'll be playing on console or PC, but I do want to go back in at some point. Probably when this expansion's dirt cheap, like all the other ones do, and I'll pick it up and give it a go. But I haven't played since Beyond Light released, really, so I haven't been able to give that much of a go. But I know it's had some issues throughout the past sort of 6 months of it being out, so I might hold off a little bit longer. But yeah, it's interesting to see. Sorry.
I was going to say. So I think sort of to pick up on that, you were saying the issues. I don't think the issues are so much with the expansion, and one of the big things was to do with some system thing that probably there's no point going into it. But I think the expansion itself is okay. But I think Destiny's always a weird one to recommend, because it's like it's almost like the value proposition. It's like, are you in it only for the story, or are you in it because you want to play past the story? And it's kind of one of those. I think we spoke about this with Avengers briefly.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, I think like Destiny as a game is like pretty good at the moment, but I don't think the expansion's too bad. Like if you want something to play, but yeah, that's just on that topic. I wouldn't say it's not worth buying, but it depends what you're in it for.
Yeah, for sure. Justin, did you have any thoughts on this before we move on?
Not too much. You guys summed up pretty much everything. I just, I've barely played Destiny. The last time I played was probably like last year. I touched it for like a few hours, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, I haven't played in a long time, so I don't think I'd be returning anytime soon.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I know they've obviously been going in a bit of a different direction recently anyway, with the whole split from Activision and things. So, but yeah, interesting to see that they did add that stuff. But yeah, moving on. The Coalition, who are obviously the developers of Gears of War, I've said that in a recent blog post that they are moving to Unreal 5, which makes a lot of sense. They are starting to get that engine up and running for a lot of devs, and obviously Coalition probably have a good relationship with Epic since they both worked on Gears and things. But because of this, they said there's no new projects that they're going to be announcing anytime soon, most likely because they were waiting for Unreal to start work on the next big thing. I'd imagine Gears 6. But it's good to see that they're kind of making sure to let people know, hey, don't expect Gears 6 anytime soon. I think the vast majority of people online are pretty happy about this, because it means that Gears 6 is probably going to have a little bit of a change. I think a lot of fans of that series were hoping for something a bit more different with 5. And it was a good step, but it was just kind of more of the same, and I felt kind of similar. I'm kind of mixed on Gears. I enjoy the series for what it is, but it's nothing too special, so I think a nice change of pace and the engine change might be good for it. But yeah, did you guys have any thoughts on this?
I don't think I've ever played
not too much,
Gears.
yeah.
Or if I have.
Yeah.
I played like a bit around a friend's house like years ago, and it was alright to me. I think it was the survival mode one that they've got.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never properly been to it. I think I've always, on a larger point, I always find Xbox's like first party lineup is kind of weird, because it always feels like it's the same games. It's always like, hey, it's almost kind of like Nintendo, I think, but there's maybe a bit more there. So I don't think it's one that I look at and it doesn't fully, but I'll probably enjoy it. I'll probably, if I had an Xbox, I'm sure I'd play it. yeah, it's good if they're moving to a different engine because Unreal's meant to be pretty good, isn't it, for developing better than, or at least quicker.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, both Gears 4 and 5 were on Unreal 4 because all the Gears
Okay.
games have obviously been on Unreal, so it makes sense that they would move to the engine. I think it's great that they are sort of taking their time as well because it means that Xbox themselves can put out some new stuff that isn't Gears or Halo. Obviously, we've got Halo Infinite, but hopefully this leaves a gap so they can fit in some of the newer IPs and State of Decay and that kind of thing. Just because it does feel like for the past few years it has just been Halo and Gears that has been on Xbox's mind. So hopefully this gives some of the other studios a bit more breathing room and time to shine with their projects. But yeah, I guess we'll move on unless you want to add it to anything, Justin.
No, that's pretty much it. We can move on. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So the next one's kind of a small one. It was a very weird clip that went on Reddit, but basically Gabe Newell, who is the head of Valve, he did an interview at a public school in New Zealand, out of all places, because he's still trapped there after the pandemic. But basically some students there were asking him questions, and one of those was whether they'd be bringing some of their games, or just Steam games in general, to console at some point. To which Gabe said that they'd have more news to share on games coming to console later in the year. So it seems like something Valve related is coming to console. My kind of initial thoughts were it's probably Half-Life Alyx is going to be getting a PSVR 2 port, would be my kind of guesses, and it's going to be a launch title, and it'll probably get announced whenever the headset gets announced. That seems like probably the best thing that Sony could do is to partner up with Valve on that kind of thing, since Alyx is probably the one game that I think most people would want to play if they were to get the new PlayStation headset. But other than that, I don't really know what it could be. Maybe some games coming to Switch or something, but it seems kind of like, why hadn't they done it already kind of thing, if that's the case. But I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on this. It's kind of a small one anyway, so...
Yeah. Just yeah, I don't know. Like I know you and Brandon especially talk about Half-Life Alyx a lot and how it was like one of your favorite games of last year. I remember. So I mean that's like definitely a game I would want to try. And if there's a new VR coming to PlayStation soon, then I'd definitely be interested in getting that. Just because like I don't know, like I've never tried VR and I really want to. It's just always like it's always the fact that I find it's whether or not like if there's enough support with games and stuff. I just think if there's like a good amount of games that I enjoy or looking forward to, I might be more inclined to get that headset, right? Because it's like what, like $400. It's pretty expensive.
Yeah,
and like
it's
obviously
probably
want to
going to
get
be
a
around that.
decent amount of good games if I'm gonna invest into something like that. So yeah, like I just remember how you guys talked about Half-Life Alyx, and I definitely want to try that game out. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same in terms of VR. I would love to try it. I mean, I think I briefly, when I was looking around universities before, they had like a student-made game that was like you had to like defend like this castle from like skeleton, like huge skeletons or whatever. But the weirdest thing was when they were like, oh, you could like touch like a button or something, and you would like I think it was like in the world, and you would teleport to the top of this tower. And being high up in the tower in VR when you can just look over the edge is extremely weird. And that was like the first time I'd probably like been in VR. But the main game I want to play in VR is Beat Saber, because that game just looks insane.
Oh yeah,
Every
Beat
time I
Saber's
see it, I'm
great.
like, yeah. I mean, I don't play too many rhythm-based games, but I always enjoy them. So I'm kind of like, I think if there was a non-VR version, I'd probably get it. But yeah, I think that, and obviously Half-Life would be definitely a good game to come to the console, and it literally I kind of feel like it would be like a no-brainer if it is if they're picking any Steam game, or Valve game, sorry, to go to console, especially VR wise. Yeah, that'd be cool to see.
Yeah, I think it makes the most sense. I mean, it would be kind of weird if they were just like, "Hey, we're gonna port Half-Life 2 to PS5." Like, why? Why at this point? I get it, but at the same time, why? You've got Half-Life Alyx, which is won a lot of awards, and it's a newer game, and you want to bring more people into the franchise. I think that's a great way to do it. They have also said in the past that if they can, they want to bring it to PSVR, but it obviously at the time a new headset hadn't been announced, so I'd imagine it was almost impossible to bring that game to PS4, especially with the controls on PSVR. Like, they're definitely not up to scratch for something like Half-Life Alyx, where you've got full locomotion and things. So, but yeah, hopefully we hear something later in the year. Obviously, Valve time is a thing, so it might not get announced this year, but we'll see. I'd imagine that's something we hear about whenever the new headset gets announced, though. But moving on from there, another kind of semi-small news story, but Remedy now have 6 different games in development. So Remedy are the guys who made Alan Wake and Control, and obviously the original like Max Payne's and stuff. But some of these we already knew about, so like the Crossfire X campaign, and some of the multiplayer stuff for Xbox, which is like a first-person shooter. They're working on 2 Epic published games, which are going to be set in the Alan Wake Control universe. One of those is a bigger scale game that I believe they said they've just started full production on, as well as a smaller scale project. And then they're also working on a free-to-play co-op game called Vanguard, which I think is the one they've been working on most recently. I think that's been in production for a while. And then they've just started putting a newer, smaller project into pre-production. So they've got a lot on their plate. I don't really know how big Remedy is, to be honest with you.
I remember they weren't that big. They were I don't know, like what, 200ish, or from what I remember, I thought it was around like there. Like it was definitely not a super like big amount. So I found it really surprising, you know.
From what it seems like is like Epic have probably given them a lot of money to have these 2 games published by them, so it seems like they've definitely expanded the studio a lot. I imagine Xbox put a lot of money in for the Crossfire stuff and things as well. But yeah, I think it's a good sign that they're working on so many projects, because they're clearly confident in, you know, how their games are performing and things. I guess Control did really well for them, which is great to see. So hopefully we hear about these soon. But yeah, did you have any thoughts, like Josh? Did you think of anything? But yeah.
No, I've never played any Remedy games. I have Control, obviously, it's free on PS Plus, but yeah, no, so I don't really know too much, because isn't Crossfire like is it a remake or something, remaster or something kind?
It's like a Chinese game, so that it's like the first time it's come to the West, I believe. So it was just like a multiplayer first-person shooter, and Remedy are basically working on the campaign for it. I think it's out this year as well.
Yeah, because I remember hearing about that. I think it was announced last year or the year before or something like that. I remember it being like a random. Yeah, no, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I said that, and it's weird to me though, because like I don't know how big Control is in terms of like I don't. Would you consider it AAA? I suppose probably.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wonder if like these other games compare in scale to that. You know, see if they've got a free to play game as well. Seems like maybe they're distributing the team to work on multiple things rather than one big thing or something. Unless they are working on one of those is like a big thing, of course. Not that that's bad. I just wonder in terms of what kind of, and plus they're making multiple different kinds of games. You know, it could be different genres and things. But yeah, I'm not too familiar with Remedy, because they also made Alan Wake, didn't they?
Yeah.
Alan Wake, Quantum Break.
Yeah, I want to play Quantum
Break's really. I don't know. Quantum Break's pretty like mixed reception, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think that there's a few Xbox, like early Xbox One games that are a shame that they didn't get. I wouldn't say didn't get port, but like at least it didn't get more coverage, kind of thing. Because I remember Sunset Overdrive being another game that's like obviously Insomniac, and it's like they're like 2 Xbox games that I'm like would be cool to play.
The TV aspect of Quantum Break is kind of iffy, but like I thought the gameplay at least was really fun. The story's like okay.
I think that's the same with most Remedy games, though, right? Like the gameplay.
Yeah,
is, like, they always
try to they always try to go outside the box, you know, do something like a little unique, right? And then I don't know, it's always like a little weird, but yeah, the gameplay is fun.
I just hope that big like game that Epic are publishing that's now in production, I hope that's Alan Wake 2.
Oh
like,
yeah,
I feel like
exactly.
that's what it has to be Alan Wake.
I know, right? Like I've been waiting for an Alan Wake 2 for so long.
I know. This is like the closest we'll get to it as well, so I really hope that's what we're getting. But
yeah,
I guess we'll just have to wait and see. If it's only going to full production now, it's probably going to be a while before we see anything, but hopefully sooner rather than later, because it's been 11 years since that game came out.
So long ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and after like Control and kind of connections and that, I really hope we do get to see that soon.
Yeah. Did the DLC did that DLC come out, or the
second DLC they did was kind of like Alan Wake connected.
Right.
It kind of set up an Alan Wake 2 as well, so hopefully that is what they're probably working on now. But I guess we shall wait and see. But moving on from there, Ubisoft also had like an investors call, I think, this week, and they were basically saying that, as they've said in the past, they are going to be moving away from doing their 3 to 4 big AAA games a year, and they want to focus more on high-end free-to-play titles. We kind of saw this last year where they were doing things like Roller Champions had a few betas and things, as well as Hyperscape came out. But they've said they want to move into more of that space. Obviously, they did recently announce that Division spin-off Heartlands, which is going to be free-to-play as well. Also, after this, they did kind of reaffirm to people that they are still doing AAA. You are still going to get your Assassin's Creeds and your Watch Dogs and all that kind of stuff. It's still going to be paid games. I imagine Splinter Cell and Prince of Persia and all that stuff.
Yep.
But it's just that
not that game.
Don't worry,
Splinter
Josh.
Cell
It's going to
doesn't
happen
exist.
one day. But yeah,
I was going to say a minute ago, you said it had been like 11 years since Alan Wake, and I was like, it's been nearly 8 years since Splinter Cell.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's got to happen, right? It's got to be right around the corner.
We
We keep saying that every year. I feel when we're like doing the E3 predictions. Josh is like, "Oh yeah, I think Splinter Cell might come back this year."
I think from like 2016 and like 17, 18, and probably 19, I was like, this is the year. And last year I kind of just forgot, and this year I'm like, oh, I don't really care. If it shows up, sure. But they announced the VR game, and I'm like, I really don't care. Because I would be interested if I had a VR.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I just, even if I had a VR, I doubt I'd be like, this is the direction I want Splinter Cell to go in. It's just really mixed though, because I don't know what. It's like they've got Far Cry. I don't know if they're doing another Watch Dogs, but they've also got Assassin's Creed. It just, again, it's like, oh, they're making like just sequel. I just feel like there's room in that barrel.
Alongside this news, they did also confirm that Skull and Bones is still a thing, but it did get delayed again. Yeah, so
I'll just keep confirming it's real, but delaying it at the same time. It's like, don't worry, it's still.
I feel like every time they talk about it, it becomes a different game. Like nearly every time they mention it, they're like, "Oh, the direction of the game has changed, and we've got a new creative director." Yeah. So, I mean, maybe we'll see it this summer, but I doubt it, honestly, because it's meant to be fiscal year, I think 2022. So I think the latest it's at right now is March 2023. So we'll see if that game ever appears. But I mean, they've got so much running on that game because they've like said they're going to do a Skull and Bones movie and like all this kind of stuff, and they haven't even shown that game properly yet. So
yeah,
I don't know what's going on.
It's crazy to me they're going to do all that, but they haven't said basically anything about Splinter Cell. But I say that they've got the anime thing.
There's that mobile game he's in, right?
Oh yeah. The what's it called? It's Elite Squad, is it?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, Tom Clancy. Yeah, I haven't even played it. It's disrespectful. They've put him in like every other Tom Clancy game though, because he was in.
He was in Ghost Recon as well.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like, I mean, part of me just thinks it's to. I don't know, because I always wonder, like, is that done as like a. It's funny, whenever someone mentions Ubisoft, my mind is immediately on Splinter Cell. I don't care about anything else, really.
Yeah.
So that's where this conversation's going. But no, I do wonder if it's like putting Sam Fisher in these games. Is it to see how people react, or is it to I don't know, just to maybe boost sales on that game or something? Like, it's one of those, like, I feel like it's probably the latter. I really don't feel like it's to see if people want Splinter Cell or something.
I think for me with Splinter Cell, I always thought it was the thing of they know people want these games, but they want to make sure if they make one that people are going to be happy with it. And I have a feeling it's just a lot of the developers are kind of too scared to work on it. It's one of those franchises that has such a big fan base, and like it hasn't been worked on for so long that they're probably scared that if they do release something, they'll piss off fans. It's a very similar situation with Prince of Persia. Like, I feel like the only way they felt they could do something with that is the remake, which obviously a lot of people weren't happy with, so they did end up having to delay it. So who knows what will happen with Splinter Cell. I think the VR game will be an interesting way of them doing Splinter Cell. I mean, it will work really well in VR, but obviously that's not going to be where the majority of the fan base are, like you, Josh. Like, you're probably not going to play it when it does come out.
If I had a VR headset, I would probably play it. But as you said, it's probably not the direction that I'm really wanting.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I do think eventually we will get one, but it's one of those things where they won't make it until they have a really solid pitch and idea and things, and Who knows? Maybe it's in development right now, but
It might be announced this year.
maybe it's one of the 3 to 4 AAA games they're trying to do a year, or that they're moving away from. We'll see. But
It's
yeah,
gonna be
I
a
guess moving
free-to-play
on from
game.
there. It's free to play Splinter Cell, multiplayer only. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
gonna be one of
But
their
the thing
high
is,
end
okay,
titles.
they could do Spies versus Mercs. I mean, I barely played that mode, but I feel like
I think a lot
that's
of
a
people
multiplayer
said the
mode.
multiplayer was good, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say I've always heard the multiplayer is like meant to be like really good. I think I played a bit of it in Blacklist to get the platinum in that, but other than that, I've just never played it. But I just feel like I'm kind of surprised they haven't even tried doing something like that. Because I mean, you've got like Siege, and I feel like it could sail on Siege as well. Like I mean, I don't know if I'd want it to be free to play, but I would probably prefer free because I don't know if I'd want to. It's weird buying like PvP only games is always a weird thing to me. So I assume free to play is probably the way they would go. But I kind of feel like that would be the first thing they should do if they want to, or at least one thing they should do. Splinter Cell related. I wouldn't
Yeah.
complain at that. I don't think, but yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I guess moving on from there, we have a decent chunk of PlayStation news this week. So the first of this came from an article that Wired put up. It was an interview with Jim Ryan they did recently, and it was basically talking about how the PlayStation 5 is doing and, upcoming titles like Returnal, or I guess when they wrote it, Returnal, as well as Ratchet and Clank. But they did also confirm that PlayStation currently has 25 new titles in development, and half of these are new IPs, which is obviously big news coming off things like Jason Schreier's article, which was obviously a bit of a downer for a lot of people because it seemed like it was coming across as Sony don't want to work on new stuff and they just want to kind of keep shipping out things that are selling the most, like Last of Us and Uncharted. But it seems like PlayStation is still very interested in doing new IP. They don't really specify here where these new titles are coming from, whether they're all first party. I would assume this includes a lot of stuff like Destruction All Stars and Sackboy, where they're being developed by third party studios, but they're still going to be under the PlayStation Studios banner kind of thing, much like the Haven Studio that was recently kind of funded by PlayStation for their new thing. But yeah, what did you?
That's interesting. I mean, 25 new titles, it's quite a lot. I love new IPs, right? But at the same time, obviously, I guess take it with a bit of grain of salt, just because like I don't know, like a lot of the things that Jim Ryan says nowadays, that like I don't know, like half the things he says, it just like or what's called like contradicts other things that he says. With the whole like next gen, like we believe in generations thing, and then it's like Horizon coming out on last gen too. So it's like I don't know, like it's cool, but at the same time, I'll just keep my expectations set. I don't want to like obviously get too excited or anything like that. But yeah, nonetheless, 25 new titles, a lot of new IPs. I'm interested. I guess we'll have to wait and see, when those hopefully get announced soon. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, same here. I would hope that it is interesting that half of them are new IPs. As I said, I'm interested to know, like again, like whether they're like entirely first party games or not. And of course, I'll always throw out that maybe will Jak and Daxter be in there? I don't think Jak and Daxter will be in there, obviously, but yeah, I always wonder about like kind of where things are heading, and it's one of those, it's nice to know, but it does kind of feel like most of the teams that we the bigger teams in terms of first party, I feel like are probably just gonna be working on sequels to what they've already got. I think Naughty Dog's probably one that I'm most interested in because I feel like Sucker Punch is gonna go to Ghost again. I guess Insomniac could go somewhere else after Ratchet. But
They're
I just
probably
feel
gonna
like
make
Naughty Dog
Spider-Man
going
2, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can
Oh
kind of
yeah,
tack on here, but there was some stuff today where like the voice actor for Miles Morales basically tweeted a picture of the spider logo, and the guy who does I think the motion capture or whatever for Spider-Man, he was saying time to go back to work. So it seems like Spider-Man 2 is kind of about to go into full production here. So I'd imagine that's what's happening next for them at least.
yeah. No, I mean it'd be interesting to see. Yeah, on the grand scale because I feel like because obviously Insomniac have been working on Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and the remaster, and then Ratchet all within because I obviously have two different teams.
Hmm.
But it depends. Will they like? Will I suppose like because obviously with games getting obviously new generation whatever, how like what kind of manpower is required to actually make these games. In terms of, because obviously Naughty Dog had like the two team thing. I don't know if they're still doing that. Because didn't they had the two teams, then they came together for Uncharted 4, then they were together for Last of Us, I think. But they had Lost Legacy. I don't know how. I'm sure they had two teams, then they came together, then split off again. I'm just interested to know if Insomniac will do the same. Whether Insomniac will do like everyone's on Spider-Man 2, or.
I mean, it depends.
Yeah.
Like Sunset could be a thing that was also kind of talked about today. The game director of Ratchet, I can't think of the name escapes me right
Marcus
now.
Smith.
Marcus Smith, that is it. And he was basically asked like, Sunset Overdrive, what do you think? Are you still gonna do stuff with that? And his kind of thing was never say never. We're working on a lot of different stuff in the future, and it would be cool to go back to. Which kind of says to me that they do want to do Sunset, and they were saying that nothing's really stopping them. So it's just kind of if the team wants to work on it, Sony would probably be happy to do it. Which makes me think that maybe a Sunset remaster is gonna happen sooner rather than later, which would be cool, because I think getting more people to try that game would be good. As you were saying earlier, it's one of those games that, because it was in the early end of Xbox One where not much positive stuff was coming out about that console, I think a lot of that stuff went under the radar, including Sunset, so it'd be nice to see that kind of come back. But yeah, I think Insomniac's one of those studios that is probably going to do at least the dual team thing, maybe more, depending on how many people they've got working for them right now. But yeah, I guess we shall move on from there. We have also had some leaks, I guess, for the specs of the PSVR 2 headset. These weren't kind of like big concrete facts, but this is coming from Upload VR. They basically said that they've had a few different sources come to them now, sort of with spec leaks for the headset. The main ones here were that it's going to have a 4K display, which is going to be slightly higher than you currently get on the Quest 2 headset, which is one of the best on the market right now. It's also going to have some form of eye tracking, which is something that has been in development for a lot of headsets for a while now, but it's still early days, so it'll be interesting to see what Sony are doing with this. And I think the most interesting one here, at least for me, is that the headset is apparently going to have some kind of motor in there for haptic feedback. Me and Brandon had actually spoken about this a while back, and it was one of those things that I said they probably wouldn't do, because I don't even know how they would do that in a headset without it being uncomfortable or like moving the lenses around, but Brandon thought it would be something they could do, and it seems like maybe it is happening. Obviously, I know you guys don't really know too much about VR or play it, but did you have any thoughts on this one?
As you said, like a lot of I guess like the leaked info isn't really too concrete, but yeah, I mean, it looks interesting. Once again, I do want to get into VR at some point, right? And, if they obviously support PSVR 2 with, good games, I'll definitely be more inclined to pick it up. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have like too many thoughts on the actual like eye tracking, haptic feedback. It just seems like they're obviously implementing new things. They want to make it better, obviously, with new technology. So yeah, I don't know.
No, it'd be interesting. I think for me, like I'm probably more likely to be interested in and maybe buy this because, well, actually, I wonder if it's backwards compatible. That's one thing that I'd be interested to know. But also, I was considering getting a VR for PS4, and we have a PS4 downstairs as well, so that was kind of like, I at least have the space downstairs, so I could use it, because my room is not really built for VR. But because of I knew that like the PS5 was coming out soon, and the cost of that was almost like towards, it was like, I think it's at 250 over here. Sure, was like
yeah, I want to say it's about 250. Yeah, I'm not too sure, but it's around about that.
And it's like, and obviously it's cool that it works for PS5, but it's like, I didn't want to like go and spend that much on a VR and then also have like the PS5, which is like twice as much nearly in like within a year or so. Whereas the PSVR 2, hopefully will be, I imagine, next year. I would like to think. Does this year feel like a possibility for that, or is that
I
too
doubt
soon?
it, just because they're still struggling with stock for PS5s. I'd imagine holiday next year seems like a likely time frame for the headset to be coming out.
Yeah, so I think that I'd probably be more likely to buy into that than I would a PSVR, both now and as well as last year, just because of the fact that at least it's not coming out right near a new console. unless they have a PS5 Pro within a year or two after that as well, which I feel like is possible, but I don't think I would be like having to buy into that either. So yeah, be interesting
Yeah,
to see.
I mean, obviously, like I said before, this stuff is not concrete. Like, take it with a grain of salt, but it does seem to line up with what we're probably gonna hear soon. Like the controllers they tried to announce so that they wouldn't get leaks. Same thing with the DualSense last year because they did start sending it out to devs. It seems like these specs have leaked because they've started sending like dev kits out to people to start working on games for the headset. So I'd imagine we do get an announcement for this headset in some form in the next month or two. I would like to take a guess. It will probably be very simple. It will be like the controllers where they just kind of show off some images of it, detail a few specs, but you won't hear dates or prices or games or anything like that. It'll just be kind of like a thing to say, hey, this is what it looks like. Here's what it can do. We'll have more to say on it later in the year because obviously they want to try and get out before leaks because there's always going to be a few people that manage to take pictures of this thing and post it online. So I think it makes sense that we heard about this stuff when we did. But yeah, moving on. We also saw this week that Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart has gone gold. This happened today as of recording. And also yesterday there were previews for the game, so a load of press got to basically go on like a Zoom call and watch another sort of like 30 to hour long minutes of footage. As well as go to like these talks that were detailing some of the things about the game, like the music and animation and that kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know if you guys wanted to talk about this. I feel like me and Justin have probably said a lot of our thoughts on Ratchet over the past few weeks. I think we're all pretty excited to give it a go. But yeah.
I guess Josh could go
want it.
first. Yeah, Josh is like a big Ratchet
I,
fan.
I'm like so like genuinely. I literally was recording my hopes for the game the day of the state of play. YouTube took ages to upload it, and so I ended up posting it after that. But I remember watching the gameplay, and I was like genuine like excitement from like just finishing it and rewatching it. Like the only thing that hasn't been like spoken about is a new game plus and like challenge mode. That's like the only thing that I'm hoping is a thing. Obviously, but I feel like we'll find out when the game comes out. Or they'll say it in a tweet or something like that. It won't be something they announce. But other than that, I'm just genuinely like really, really excited for that. And I mean, it's like the first Ratchet game in 5 years, and if you don't include 2016 because it was a cheaper and less, it was a shorter game, it's been like nearly 8 years. So it's like same time Splinter Cell that as well. So yeah, no, I'm very excited for that, and it's cool. I did actually listen to Kind of Funnies, or at least some of their impressions from seeing some gameplay. I've kind of didn't want to watch too much gameplay
Right,
about
yeah.
it because
Yeah.
I'll hear too much because I was like, I saw it came out yesterday, and I was like clicking on it was Game Informer's thing that came out first, I think, and I was like clicking on the article and everything, and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to read through it because I'm like, I want to know, but it's only a month away, so I'm like very, but I'm like, I'm gonna try and not look at anything else for the game, but I'm definitely my most anticipated this year, and yeah, it
Right.
looks really good, and I'm very excited.
Yeah. I took a quick glance at some of the previews. Just yeah, I didn't want to also like Josh. I didn't want to see too much of the gameplay, just because I feel like, um, for the most part, I
I'm
know
surprised they're
what I'm
showing
getting.
much, honestly.
Yeah, like
Like
they
after the state
showed
of
a
play, it
good
feels
chunk
soon.
of like some set pieces and stuff, and I'm like, okay, I don't really need to see this. For the most part, I know what I'm expecting from Ratchet and Clank. Um, so yeah, like I'm like really excited. It's only like a month away, so it's not too long from now. And I don't really need to see any more. The gameplay obviously looks really fun. The particle effects and just yeah, the graphics look next level. It looks like a crazy step up, and I guess this is kind of like the first big PS5 exclusive that's coming out. That's not like a launch title. That like I guess Demon Souls was like the only other one, but that's
I
like a
guess
remake,
Returnal,
right?
but
Oh yeah, Returnal I guess too. Yeah, right. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It looks good. It's a month away, so yeah, I'm excited to play it when it comes out.
yeah, I think the same as you guys. I didn't watch too much, just because I don't want to see too much. I saw a few clips on Twitter, and I did watch some of Kind of Funny's impressions, but they didn't show too much footage, which was nice. But yeah, it was just like kind of reaffirmed to me like it's gonna be a good game. I just hope that there's a decent amount of content in there. Like Josh said, I do hope that there is like a challenge mode, or some kind of new game plus. I imagine there will be. I think Insomniac
It's
have
been
put
in
new
like
game
every
plus
game.
in, like yeah, like
Yeah.
everything they've done. So I'll be shocked if there isn't some kind of new game plus. But yeah, it looks really cool. Some of the gadgets they showed off in some of the footage I saw looked pretty cool. But yeah, it's not too long to wait now, so I'm excited to give it a go. I think the biggest detail I saw that kind of came out of it is that it does seem to be a sequel to Nexus from what I've seen,
Yeah.
um,
It is.
like from where the story starts. So that kind of said to me that I need to go back and they have said you don't need to play the other ones, but it's made me want to go back and play the PS3 ones because I only ever played Tools of Destruction. I haven't played the other ones, so I do want to go back and play through those ones before this comes out if I have a chance. But yeah, overall the previews are looking good, and like I said, not long to wait now. Only less than a month, like 28 days, I think. So not too long at all. But alongside this information, today we did also find out that they're finally doing some more colors for the DualSense controllers. We've got a red and a black coming out alongside Ratchet in the US on the 11th of June, and then over here in Europe it's on the 18th. For whatever reason, hardware for PS5 seems to be coming out a week later over here, which sucks. But hopefully we'll be able to get our hands on these. I don't know if you guys are going to be getting these. I might get one of them. I'm not too sure right now because they're not cheap.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I want to
The
get the red one.
same, yeah.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, the red one looks really cool. Yeah, I don't know. Black's fine too. It's just I don't know, black's pretty standard, and I just like like I like colors and stuff, so I think red would be cool. And yeah, also like they sell them at my work, and I get a discount, so I'm just gonna try and
Oh,
get it
nice.
there. Yeah, so um, if I could get a red one, that'd be nice. I'm hoping for a blue release sometimes.
Hmm.
I definitely want a blue one sometime soon. But yeah, red's definitely the red one looks really nice too, so I'll try and get that one.
The red, because it looks like a different red to the one they did for PS4, I think, isn't it?
It's
more of a
darker. It's like
It's
dark.
like a
It's like
metallic
yeah,
kind of looking
yeah.
one.
yeah, yeah. No, it looks really nice. The thing that I was saying earlier in the server, I was like, I want black because it's like traditional PlayStation typically, uh, but I'm like the red does look good. The red's
Yeah.
different kind of
Yeah.
thing, so I was like, yeah,
Yeah, I kind of
but they're
wish
not cheap.
the red looks a bit pink to me, which it looks nice, but I would have preferred like a more like normal red. Just because I am a fan of the color red. If you see on my webcam, my mic is red. I have a PS4 red controller. Like that is like my go-to color, so I will probably be getting that one. I do know it's slightly more expensive, which is really annoying. It's like $5 more or something because you're paying for a color rather than black or white, which is kind of dumb.
Oh really?
Yeah, I think it's like
Yeah.
$75 or something instead of being
Wow.
70. It's really weird. Um, but yeah, those are coming out pretty soon. Hopefully, they'll actually be able to ship a decent chunk of them. I think controllers over here are like the one thing that you're able to get basically whenever. All the
Mhm.
other accessories are pretty hard to get hold of, so hopefully these won't be picked up by scalpers too quickly, and they'll be easy to get hold of. But yeah, those launch alongside Ratchet, so yeah, we won't have too long to wait on some controllers as well.
Mhm.
But outside of news, because that is basically it, we are going to go over our Resident Evil Village impressions because we have all played
Nice.
and beaten the
Nice.
game. I guess, Josh, do you want to go first since you are the guest here?
Do you know that? Okay. I really liked it, and I think it's my favorite Resident Evil game, and it's probably my favorite survival horror game.
Okay.
Not
Interesting.
not that I've played too many. I think Dead Space 2 is the main one that would rival, and that's a PS3 game, and we don't have backwards compatibility, so I can't. I would like to replay it, but I can't. Um, but yeah, no, that I mean that kind of sum up my overall thoughts on it. But I genuinely like really. I mean, well, sure, we'll get into more details in a minute, but I do think like the second half is not as good as the first. I think the first certainly grabs you, and and I think actually overall the pacing of this game to me was like a million times better than Seven, mainly because of the second half in Seven. Uh, Felt kind of like the ship section was kind of has always been a bit of a even my first playthrough. I was just like it just felt like it was really slow. There is a
Mm.
section in Eight that you could sort of say the same about, but I don't think it's as bad. Uh, and I think I was honestly surprised about the story as well. I mean, there's obviously a lot of Resident Evil lore stuff in there that doesn't really mean too much to me because obviously I'm not too. I've played 2, 7, and a bit of 4, and that's basically it. So I'm
Okay.
yeah, I want to play more of 4. And from what I
Yeah,
know,
damn,
8 is
you need
very
to finish
similar
4. You need to
to
finish 4.
yeah. I'm sure I played like 3 hours of it, 3 or 4 hours. And I started that like I think it was in 2018, I think, or 2019 or something.
Yeah, 4 has
Probably,
a 4 like it starts off a bit slow, but think that like once you get to near the I guess like the
it's the aiming to
one
me that's
third to
always
halfway point, it gets really good.
yeah. But yeah, no, this has a lot of similarities to that, and I guess not that it's too spoilery, but like there's a new game plus in Resi 8, and there's tons of unlockables, and there's an extra mode, and I've got like halfway through on the second playthrough, and I basically haven't stopped thinking about the game since I finished it. I'm just
Right.
really
Yeah.
it's like I've been wondering like am I overpraising this game? Like am I saying but I genuinely think that it's a really good game. I think there's obviously for sure there's criticisms and there's discussions to be had on like whether like the second half of the game. I don't know what we're doing in terms of spoilers.
Yeah,
There's
are
certain
we
elements
talking
of
about
that that kind of
spoilers or no?
I
I mean,
guess, do you
we
want to like have non-spoiler impressions first, and then we can
okay,
kind of go in spoilers?
right.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, like there's a without going into too much detail, one part of the second half of the game is kind of is a bit slow ish. But I think overall it's really well paced, and I didn't really find I was getting bored. I think it's the quickest time I've beaten a Resident Evil game in because
Yeah.
typically they seem to,
True.
even though they're not short games, sorry, even though they're not long games, sorry, I seem to take a few days to beat them. I remember Resident 2 taking a bit of time. I think it was like 12 hours on my first playthrough, then it was like 8 on my second one. But
Mhm.
yeah, I'll let you guys talk. But yeah.
Sure. I guess I can go. Um, like Josh, I mean, the first half I really enjoyed. Like, I'd say, like, I was just really invested into the game. You know, just right away from the opening. It's like really intriguing what happens where it like sets up the story, I guess. I thought the atmosphere was great. You know, when you're just in the village, in the castle. Um, and yeah, yeah, like also, yeah, I guess the first half I really enjoyed compared to the second half. Not that the second half was bad. It just I thought, there's some moments where I wasn't enjoying myself as much as the first. Like the first, I thought, or like I had a really good time just taking my time exploring the different paths and stuff, finding different like treasures and stuff, or like finding items that would help me unlock different paths and stuff. I guess kind of like progressing through the story. Um, the gameplay was, it felt like a more refined version of Resident Evil 7. And I thought that like at least like one of my problems with 7 was just that like you could never like properly run, and which is I guess that kind of added to the like the horror effect if someone's like chasing behind you. You couldn't really run away too fast. But I just thought I liked the new approach where it was kind of like more actiony. I don't know, like some people have had like different opinions about that. Like they might have preferred the more horror approach in 7, which I also enjoyed too. I like the horror approach in 7, but at the same time I'm not gonna complain about the more action approach that they took here, because it was really like I guess you could compare it a lot to Resident Evil 4, which I got a lot of similar vibes to. There were many sections in that game which reminded me of Resident Evil 4, which is my favorite Resident Evil game. So yeah, I enjoyed it. The story is like it's not the best. It's pretty simple, and then at the end it basically kind of where everything, I guess, how should I say this, like the for the most part, like the first half of the game, the plot is pretty straightforward, and then near the end is where everything unfolds. But yeah, overall, like I guess I'll talk more about, we'll go more in depth later on. But yeah, like overall impressions, I really enjoyed it. I definitely beat the game like really fast. Like yeah, I beat the game within 2 days, which was like 4 playthroughs of like I guess the first day I played like when it launched at midnight, I played for like 4 hours, which was already like a really pretty long amount. And then the next or like when I woke up the next day, I played for like another 2 hours before I went to work, and then I beat it and then I played again at nighttime, and then I beat it the next day. So yeah, Yeah, like I definitely enjoyed it a lot. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I've probably got kind of like the lowest opinion of the game out of you guys. Like, I enjoyed it. I think it's a decent game, but I definitely don't think it's my favorite Resi or anything like that. Um, I think it took me just over 7 hours to beat it, so about 7.5 hours. I think
Damn,
it said 7 hours
pretty
20,
quick.
something like that. And the weird thing about that is I basically did everything on the map. Like there was a few things I missed because I didn't get like the trophy for collecting all the maps and stuff, but I did almost everything on the map as I was going through and stuff. So I was pretty much taking my time with the game, and I still got through it pretty quick.
Damn.
Overall, like the gameplay and stuff, I really enjoyed. I think some of the changes they made to gunplay and movement and things is pretty good. Um, I do think that the action approach for me wasn't that great in this game, mainly because I don't think it worked as well in the first person point of view. I just think the first person lends itself better to the horror aspects, and this game wasn't trying to do that as much. There are certain sections that are definitely more horror based, but overall it is more of an action game, and for me, I think the third person games do a much better job of that, just because it's a little bit easier to keep control of what's going on around you and things. And I had a lot of moments, especially later on in the game, where you'd get attacked from behind and you'd get kind of trapped, and it was kind of awkward to run around enemies and things. So I think for me, that's kind of the biggest downfall, other than the story. I think overall the story makes some interesting choices. I think some work and some don't. As a Resi fan, I think they do some odd things, especially regarding kind of the lore and history of Resident Evil, and it's kind of weird. And I think that's kind of the where the most decisive things happen in the fan base. Like there are some people that like Josh that have really enjoyed this game, and I can see why. But there's also a lot of people that really don't like it, and I can also see that kind of point of view. I'm kind of in the middle, I want to say. But aside from that, like I did enjoy a lot of it. I think the boss fights were pretty weak. But I was saying to some mates, it was kind of like, how do you do boss fights well in a first-person shooter? Like, there's not really too much you can do. But for me, I think every single boss fight was just the same. It was just shoot this
They were
thing,
similar. Yeah.
they fall over, you shoot them some more. It just felt like I was fighting the normal enemies, but they were bigger. There wasn't really much else to the boss fights, and I guess we'll talk about that more in spoilers. But yeah, for me, it was decent. I think I prefer 7 more than I do 8, just because I think it's a bit more sure of what it wants to be. I think 8's a bit all over the place, whether it wants to be a horror or an action game, and for me personally, it didn't work as well. But I still enjoyed the game. I enjoyed my time with it. I will probably go back and do another playthrough at some point, because I haven't gone back and done like a new game plus with some unlocked weapons or like mercenary mode or anything. I haven't tried that yet. But yeah, overall I still enjoyed it, but I do have some problems with it here and there. But yeah, I guess we will go into spoilers now. So if you don't want to stay tuned for that, thanks for tuning into the podcast. Hopefully next week we'll have Brandon back on. He can tell us his thoughts on Resi if he's beaten it by then. But yeah, thank you for stopping by. And yeah, see you next time, I guess. But we will get into spoilers now. So I don't know which one of you wants to sort of go first on your thoughts.
I guess
It depends where we
Josh
start.
can go first.
Yeah. So obviously, it's something you said, I can't remember, but the second half of the game is like I think the biggest thing. Actually, no. We'll talk about the boss fights, because you were saying because they are similar, and something that I remember playing through it. It's like it did feel like they were just shoot them till they're dead kind of thing,
Yeah.
and I think 7 kind of has that, but 7, like the Jack fight in particular, is a bit more like, oh, you got to use the chainsaw, and there's like a mechanic with that where and that's the only part of the game you get to use that. I think you can unlock it through like being on hardest difficulty or something, but yeah. So like I think they're, I don't know. I'm trying to think like 7. What was 7 mostly? Besides the Jack fight, I feel like they were still fairly maybe.
Marguerite boss fight, where she's like
Yeah,
Yeah, but
Marguerite,
like
you're
they were
kind of
still
like
fairly spongy. They were still fairly shoot them till they're dead, I think.
yeah, because it's like Marguerite, you're kind of like she's running around and like hiding in spots and kind
Yeah.
of leaps on you. And obviously the Jack fight at the end, you've got like the different eyeballs you have to run around and shoot, and he's jumping between like the two
Yeah.
levels and things.
Mhm.
Um,
Is there anything
But
else?
yeah,
Are there any other boss fights in that 7? Or is that it?
it's
That's
mainly
about it,
just
right?
those three because you obviously don't fight
You don't
the
fight
sun,
Lucas. Yeah.
um, and yeah, and
Oh, and I
I'm
guess
trying
the
to think
final
the
Evelyn boss
end
fight, which is like
with
barely a fight.
Evelyn, but
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
barely a
it's
fight.
just shoot them, and it's more like a cutscene than anything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah, I guess I'll talk about like the boss fight for me that was probably the weakest. Is probably the Heisenberg
Miranda?
one.
Oh.
I, I mean that one's not great either, but I think the Heisenberg boss just kind of sucks. Like it's a really interesting idea that you're in this mech, but then they just don't really do anything with it. Like it's such a cool character, and they kind of give him a really boring fight. Like he's this cool dude that has these weird magnet powers, and he's like throwing metal all over the place, and then his boss fight is just he turns into a monster and wraps himself in metal, and you just shoot him till he's dead at these shining red points. I'm like, you could have done something cool. Like I was kind of hoping they were gonna do like a weird Titanfall thing, like you'd be in a proper like mech and like fighting this guy. Like Resident Evil's dumb, just go all out, you know. Like you've already got this guy in a weird tank that Chris made out of just random scrap, and this giant metal monster. Why not just go all out and make it like Pacific Rim or something? But yeah, for me, that was probably the weakest. The Miranda one's kind of weak too, but that's more just because you don't really kill her. You kind of just have to keep fighting until eventually you get a cutscene.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, for me, they're just very weak fights, and I think they could have done more interesting stuff. But yeah, I don't know if you guys want to talk about some of the other things.
I was gonna say, what do you think to the adaptive triggers on that tank thing though? Because I'm
Oh, with the
sure, I don't know if
minigun,
it's me.
yeah.
Yeah, the minigun felt like it was like actually like kicking on the trigger as you were firing, and it reminds me of
Yeah,
like
it
Time
does,
Crisis in like arcades or
Mm.
something. And I was just like that. I know that's more of a nonsensical, not really related to the quality of it, but I think the usage of the controller just throughout the game and that particular section was cool. It is a bit of a weird fight though. I think the entire section is weird. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, Justin.
I mean, I could just touch on the boss fights too. I mean, yeah, I kind of agree. Yeah, like I didn't enjoy the Miranda fight because I thought I was just like, I don't know about you guys, but like, did you buy like or unlock a lot of the new like weapons and stuff? Because for the most part, I mainly had the default weapon. I had like the second pistol I was using. I was still using the main shotgun at the end. I didn't even get the second one.
Okay.
And then just the sniper rifle.
So
Was there
yeah,
anything else?
for me, I went into that fight with the like Mac 10 looking SMG thing, instead of my pistol. I had the second shotgun, which is like it's still a pump action, but it holds
Yeah.
more bullets and that kind of
Right,
thing.
right, okay.
And the sniper / grenade launcher, I was kind of swapping those out.
Right,
And then the
grenade launcher
Magnum.
too, yeah. Okay.
But the Magnum was just kind of there for some extra damage. Like I just quickly equip it. I didn't really upgrade that one, as far as I
Right.
know. But yeah, those are the ones I was using.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
just the
personally.
Miranda boss fight. Like I was just, I just was pumping bullets into her. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was kind of a weak boss fight. The Heisenberg one was like it seemed like a cool concept, like as you said, but at the same time, like it just seems so out of place. Like it was so different from everything else in the game,
Yeah.
and it's like I'm just in this giant like tank thing, and then, like yeah, Heisenberg's character seemed really cool, like because he was the one that was basically like, oh, I want to get out of this, I hate my role basically, where I'm just like Miranda's bitch basically, like I don't want to be part of this. And then he just transforms into like this giant crazy monster. I'm like, oh, okay, then I'm just gonna blast the shit out of you too. So I thought that was kind of weird. Yeah, what other boss fight? I guess trying to think about the water one. The water one like just reminded me like of a Resi 4 boss fight. Or like where you're like in the water with that. Or Joey,
Yeah,
do you know what
yeah.
I'm talking about? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Morrow,
the
yeah.
crocodile thing or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And then yeah, the doll one, which was like I don't know, that wasn't really a boss fight. You're just chasing her around the house, which I
Yeah,
honestly found her pretty easily. It was like I felt like I knew where I was going. The dolls were basically like leading me to her. It's like I just
just
found
like
her.
Brandon on stream.
Yeah, Brandon was really struggling with that one.
Yeah. I'm like, man, this guy just doesn't know what to do. And then yeah, I don't know. I thought that was pretty easy. Like I found her like right away.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I guess that my favorite one was honestly just the Lady Dimitrescu boss fight, which is like I don't know, because I just thought it was cool how um like the whole time you're like finding all those masks and stuff, and then once I finally found the fourth mask, which is like you had to go up to the roof to get, and I was like circling the castle for a long time trying to find it, and like once I found that last one, I was like holy shit, let's go. I was like really satisfied at that point, and then
Mm.
you basically escape the castle, and then she's like right behind you, and then yeah, she like fucking transforms into that thing, and I'm like holy shit, okay. She's like flying around, and you shoot her down too. So yeah, that boss fight was pretty good. I don't know what else I could touch on. I don't know. Did you guys have other thoughts or other areas that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll talk about the story.
Yeah, okay.
Like the game is so weird because like I don't really know what's going. Like I understand the whole plot is about Rose and like Mother Miranda wants to resurrect her kid and stuff. But the weird stuff, how they tie it into like the foundation of Umbrella, was super weird. Like I don't really know why they did that. It felt kind of out of place, and they don't even really say it. You have to be reading the
Yeah, you gotta
final
look
few
up the
notes you
lore and
find.
stuff. Yeah.
So like you pick up one photo and it's the guy that founded Umbrella, and Chris kind of remarks saying, "Wait, he was here." And then they kind of, when you read some notes, it says, "Oh, he visited this place and was helping Miranda work on the cure for her kid when they found the mega mycete weird baby looking thing." And then he went off to found Umbrella and stuff. And like it just felt, and the whole idea of the logo, he's like, "Oh yeah, that's a cool symbol we see around the village. I don't know what it means. I guess I'll I'll turn it into the Umbrella logo. Okay, cool." It was like super weird. I don't really know why they felt like they had to tie it into the village. It's kind of
Right.
weird.
Yeah. I
Um,
guess they just I don't know, they want to like tie it in with the whole Resi, like all the whole
I
timeline or whatever.
yeah,
I
Yeah.
think it's because like seven. I mean, like I said, like seven was my first Resi game, and then it was two remakes. So I don't know like the full story and everything. But from like looking like outside looking in, seven just didn't really feel like a Resident Evil game. It
So
didn't
yeah,
have the same
it was very
vibes,
on its
which
own.
I
It
think
was
was
very
yeah. I think it was
standalone.
by intention. But I think it's great for that, and I think some of the things that are obviously different between seven and eight is good for that. But I feel like it comes from a place of they wanted to tie in, to make it feel like it's more of, uh, like part of the world kind of thing, without it just being this random like, oh, there's mold and no umbrellas related to this. And I think the reason why it's in a note and not so much an actual like brought up in the story was probably because they just didn't feel like it would fit in anywhere else. So it probably was like a
mm.
cool idea they wanted to just put in to be a cool idea, um, rather than something that they wanted to like properly bake into the story. Um, I actually I remember reading through that note, but I didn't really. I sort of it was because I knew I was going to get towards the end of the game. I kind of like scan read it, so I actually didn't fully
Yeah.
take in the umbrella bit, and it kind of wasn't till I
Right.
sort of watched some other people play. I was like, oh, I see. So, and I thought it was cool. It is a bit kind of random though, um, to sort of just throw that in there. But as I said, I feel like it's got to be to do with like they wanted to connect seven and eight to make it feel like it's more part of the overall, which I think eight does. But I also think that eight is, in a lot of ways, like it feels like that they maybe just don't want to do zombies all the time. And there's obviously been other creatures and things in Resident Evil, but like primarily it's like zombies. For again, outside looking in, I'm probably wrong. Uh, but the mold creatures in like seven were like, well, they're not like zombies. They're completely different, and they did seem, and that was like the main enemy. I thought it was cool how they tied that in. Like at least I think the seven and eight connections story wise are cool.
Mm.
Um, because like how they kind of almost ended on you fighting an enemy that's kind of like made out of the mold. I feel like that was, well, not made out of the mold, but she was using mold powers of some kind for most of that fight. So I thought that was cool. But yeah, I'm interested in where this will go for the next game. Like whether they are going to almost make like a proper like full on dedicated Resident Evil game next that kind of continues that kind of connection on.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that was kind of the weirdest thing for me is the way the game ends because you kind of get that first ending where Chris is on the helicopter with Mia, right? And they find the BSAA agent who, because he's still working for the BSAA, but he clearly doesn't know what's going on because they go behind his back and send in a load of soldiers. But it turns out they're zombies, but they're obviously not normal zombies because they're able to like rappel out of helicopters and use guns and stuff. And they kind of tease. He's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to the HQ. We've got to sort this out." And then you get the time jump by like 20 years, and you're now following Rose as like an older teenager, and she's now seemingly working for Chris and I would guess the BSAA, but you don't get an explanation why they did that jump. Because I would assume the next game you're playing as Rose, right? After this time jump. So I'm like, well, why did you then put in this plot point from, straight after Resi 8 with the zombie thing? So I'm like, is that going to be DLC? Like, why are they teasing these two kind of stories at completely different times? I thought that was kind of odd.
Sorry, because someone brought up a point about this that I saw, that potentially, like, what if it's not like a massive time jump because Evelyn had the rapid aging thing as a cause by the mold, and hence why she was like really old.
Okay.
So a theory is that potentially that is only like maybe 2 or 3 years onwards.
Okay.
Which I think would make more sense just for the connection in terms. I mean, like it's set almost in like real time because they reference like 3 years ago or whatever. Which technically isn't it technically 4 years because this game I think is set in February or March. I think. Or it's early on in 2021.
Well, they just said it's like a few years later. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's 2017 that Resi 7 came out, but they keep saying 3 years, so I don't know. I don't know the timeline and everything, but yeah, I just wonder if that was maybe like a decision like, oh, this would be the next game, like 2 or 3 years away release date wise, so it will also be in the world 2 or 3 years later.
Wait, were you talking about Rose, like that ending after, like what she like?
Yeah.
Aged faster. Oh, I see.
Well, potentially, obviously, I don't know, but I was just thinking it would be weird if they jumped like 15, 20 years on. Because if you think about it, I don't know how old Chris is, but Chris must be 30, 40 years old. I'm like, well, then he would be like 50 or 60, which feels...
Right.
Yeah, he would be in his 60s because he's in like his late 40s, early 50s in Resi 8. So he would be pretty old.
He'd be solid, basically.
Yeah, so like it would suck because the thing is with Resi,
he does not look late 40s. That's crazy.
I mean, if you compare him to the way he looks in like 6, right? Like he looks pretty different.
Okay. I don't know why he looks so weird in 7 in that final. Like, that's
why they kind of went back to the Resi 6 look. But yeah, it's like I would hate if they did like a big time jump, mainly because you're then kind of alienating the original fans because a lot of people like Chris and Leon and Claire, and they would be so much older if they did a big time jump that they wouldn't be able to be cool main characters. Like, if Chris was in his 60s, you ain't going to see him punching boulders again. Like, that's just not going to happen. So I mean, kind of hope
Snake was doing pretty good for himself in MGS4, to be fair. I don't know if we'll have that same...
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what their plan is going forward. Like, I think the theory that, it's only a few years because of rapid aging would be really cool. And I think that would be a much better direction to go than a big time jump. So we'll see what's going on there. I guess the other big kind of story point to bring up is Ethan and how he seemingly dies. And then we find out that he is a mold man, as Evelyn puts it. So he basically died in Resi 7 after Jack punched him in the face and stomped on his head. And to me, it was really dumb. And I know Resi is dumb anyway, but I didn't like it. Mainly because, like, why did Evelyn give him powers? Like, I don't understand that. If he was there to kind of ruin the family, why did she give him powers in the first place?
I feel like there is some missed connection.
Yeah, and kind of like, also, how does a mold man have a kid? I don't really know how that works. Like, they didn't think that through either. So, yeah. I mean, it makes more sense from the thing of Rose is kind of more connected to the mold, right? And that was the idea. Because obviously Mia would have had some of those powers, but it makes more sense if they both were like kind of mold, and him being pure mold or whatever makes sense. But yeah, it was a really weird one, and I wasn't a fan of it. And I feel like they kind of, rather than doing it because it worked for the story, it more felt like they did it because fans complained about the fact he could like chop off limbs and just use alcohol. And I feel like they took that to heart and were like, we've got to explain it somehow.
It's
And
like,
I
how
think
is he
it,
able to do this?
yeah, and I
See,
think they took
I
it a
don't
bit
know
too
if-
far.
I feel like, I mean, I would be really disappointed if that's the reason why, but I feel like in 7, like, I mean, you can get, I don't know if there's a death scene, well, not death scene, but you can get your leg chopped off by Jack at the beginning, and
Oh yeah,
and
he's
I
like he
think
gives it
it's,
back to you, and you just attach it back.
Yeah.
yeah, it's, and that one's a bit weird. I feel like, I wonder if they had the idea back then. I think, to me, it's like, I hope they were thinking this through when they were writing 7, they didn't just be like, oh, what's the twist we can do for 8 kind of thing, because I think that would make
Yeah.
it, it's still cool, but to me at least, but I don't think it would have been as good, but I find the arm stapling on specifically, I find that one more easier to believe as
Yeah.
it's like, because this is what was weird to me is that 7 was like, I wouldn't call it realistic, but it felt very real in a lot of ways, and it was a lot more gritty and, you know, quite horror focused obviously, but it didn't feel like the game ever went too far and like, well, that's unrealistic. Like, I guess you could argue in some ways it is, you know, massive Evelyn becomes this huge mold thing, like whatever. There's, you know, I'm sure you could debate that, but 8 was just like constantly like he'd lose his fingers, or he did lose his fingers. He got his
Yeah.
like he like hooks ripped through his hands. he's
Dude,
got
that
his
was
arm chopped off
nasty
one
when
point.
that happened. When he's like hooked up on a thing.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
I gotta get out of this.
And-
And just like pulls his hand out. I'm like, oh my god, what the fuck is that? And then he like runs over to the bottle of alcohol and just pours some. He's like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell?
And then he gets like stabbed by Dimitrescu, and they do so much where he just gets bad, and I was like, to me, I was like, it felt like playing through. I was like, this feels a bit over the top. Like,
Yeah.
I get this one's probably a little less. It's a bit, you know, less loose and not compared. You know, it's not super realistic, this one, but I'm like, feels like they're pushing it. But to me, when they revealed the mold thing, I thought that was, in some ways, I think it is. It is some ways, I think, maybe a bit cheap because of the fact that, yeah, it's like, oh, they can kind of just say he survives anything. I think if he survives what happens at the end of Resi 8, that would be disappointing even more so, because that feels like they're just writing the story as they kind of go along, sort of
Yeah.
thing. It feels like, but I think the mold thing in itself, as long as they keep to this story, and maybe they just tie up, because I said it's weird how, like, sure, he was killed by Jack, but then he gets infected at some point, and there's no real like point at which I go, oh yeah, that's when he got infected, and so that's what makes me think they maybe just wanted to do it in 8 and they didn't think about it with 7,
Yeah.
unless there's some other thing that goes on. Maybe it's some weird aura in that area that if you walk in, you're automatically infected or something.
Yeah, that's
But
what
then Chris
I read
would
a
be
few
infected.
times.
I
I read a few times where
Oh,
people are
actually,
just like, yeah, you get instantly infected when you get walked when he walked into the house, and it just like took a hold of him, like after he got crushed by Jack, or I don't know.
Yeah, so I feel like that's something they probably need to be clearer about. As I said, I thought that twist was honestly really cool. I was really like, I mean, I haven't seen a twist like that in things for a while. I mean, I don't watch too much, so to me, it was just cool to have that kind of revelation. I was a bit confused at first because it was like he's like, oh, it's a dream. Then he wakes up and Duke's character. I was like, wait,
yeah.
did that actually
I
happen?
was like, that's
Or are we just? Yeah, and then it wasn't until I kind of like I sort of looked up a wiki, and it's like, okay, it is that he is a mold, you know, and whatever else. Yeah, I thought it was cool. I think, yeah, you got good points, Charlie, about it. It is a bit, maybe a little bit kind of like, as I said, hopefully it's not just done for the gameplay purposes, because otherwise that's just silly. Because
I think you then
it
also have
loses- Yeah.
I was gonna say you then have the problem of, why doesn't Ethan ever question it when he is like, you know, he gets his hand completely sliced off, right? And instead of at least having it stapled, sure, that's dumb, but it gives you a little bit of reasoning as to how it might work. He literally glues his hand back on, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't question it. So he clearly knows he has some kind of weird powers. But, like, then when he's told he's this mold person, he cannot believe it. Like, he's like, no, there's no way. There's no way I'm this mold thing. But then it's like, you literally just glued your hand
Yeah,
on.
with
You,
alcohol.
like, pulled your hands through hooks. You put some alcohol in it. It just healed up. Like, you didn't question
Yeah,
that at all.
yeah.
That is why it's kind of weird for me. It's like,
Right.
I understand,
I'm trying to
sure, they
find
might not
some
have had this
reasoning for
plan
that.
from 7. But but at least make it kind of believable throughout 8, because then when I go back to play 8 again, I'll be like, oh yeah, they kind of teased it here. Like, he's kind of being like, how the hell am I healing myself or whatever? Like, even if it was just something, like, he literally said it, you know? That would just help make it a little bit more believable. But the fact he doesn't bring it up at all, but I think that's a problem they had with Ethan last game as well. For me, Ethan as a character is kind of just weird. Like, some moments he's super vocal, and then at others he says nothing, and it's really odd. Like when he's in the castle, right, and he gets hooked or whatever, he says nothing, and they drag him around this castle, and he's basically silent. And then they put his hands on the hooks, and he screams like crazy. I'm like, you just had these 2 massive scythes through your legs, but you didn't say anything about that. It's like kind of odd, and I don't really know why that is, which is a shame because I think the rest of the voice cast is actually really good, but I just think Ethan is kind of weak compared to everyone else in that game.
I think he's the most hit and miss. I mean, he has the most lines, to be fair, but at the same time, there are points like that where it's like, why is he not saying anything? And his reaction to Mia being shot was a bit like, what? Why?
Yeah,
That was his reaction.
Yeah, because
like,
in the trailer, he's like, why? Right? And then in the actual game, he's like, Chris is like, bam, bam, bam. He's like, what? Why? You know, it's like, what the fuck? I'd be like screaming, bro. My wife. It's like your wife just got like murdered in front of you by like a friend, and it's just like, what? Why? That's good.
There's a lot of points to that. I do think his reaction at other points is pretty good though. I thought that whole revelation scene, he was pretty on point. I thought that was relatively, it is super hit and miss though, because it's like when I first played it, I was like, didn't really take much notice of it, and I was kind of like, well, I wouldn't say I didn't take much notice. I noticed some of them were a bit, like the Mia one especially was a massive, like early on. I was like, and even in the it was the village demo. And he's like, why is everyone dying on me? And then he hits the wall. He's like, why is this happening again? And it's like, I thought it was funny, but I think I found him more comical at times. But I think when he needed to be, minus the Mia bit, more or less, I thought he's been okay. But definitely not as consistent as everyone else. I thought Chris in this was really good.
Yeah.
Honestly. The scene in the car when he's talking to the other guy, whoever the guy is on the comm radio thing, and there's like this brief silence. Yeah, there's like a brief silence, and the guy's like, next thing is he's like, oh, we'll do it, sir. We'll do this. Like kind of confident, and it kind of just gives this moment of like, there's a genuine like human side to this, and it doesn't feel as ridiculous as maybe Resident Evil from what I know has kind of been a bit over the top at times, and it just adds more to like those characters, and I just think generally everyone else is fine. Ethan, I think Miranda at the end is a little bit hit and miss, but outside of that, I think everyone's good. It's a shame though because he is the main character.
I was gonna say, I think the other main problem. Oh sorry, go.
I'll let you go. You sure? No, I was just gonna say. Sorry. Do you either of you detect any Nathan Drake in him? Because I swear I did at several points through this. It just not sometimes how he sounds, but the things he would say. That like there's a bit where he would like fall down. And he's like screaming. There's just moments where I'm like, it feels like he's a little bit more like with quips and one-liners, which I don't really remember too much from 7. He was more quieter in 7, I think. I mean, in 7, I think there's points where he just doesn't say anything either. And but yeah, I'll let you go on. So that was just a random thing that I was thinking.
I was just gonna say, like, I think the other problem with him is that you still never see his face, and I think that really kind of hurts his character because we still don't really know what he looks like. And I guess they're kind of trying to say the thing of, oh, put yourself in his shoes, but it's really hard to do that when he is constantly like being hit or miss with his line delivery and things, and then sometimes not saying anything. It's kind of like, am I meant to be in his shoes, or is this a set character, and so I think not showing his face or really what he looks like too much is kind of suffers and makes him not as interesting as, say, Chris or Leon in previous games, because those characters and you know what they look like and how they act, and Ethan doesn't really have a set way he acts, and I don't think that helps his character. But again, that's just kind of like the problem when you are doing a first-person game, and that's why I think overall it kind of suffers in that respect. Because I think it worked a lot better in 7 because he was a more quiet character, because I feel like it was more they wanted you to be in his shoes, whereas this game is more like they wanted you to be Ethan, but they don't really explore that too much.
Well, the entire story is about him and Rose and Mia
Yeah.
kind of thing. So yeah, it is weird.
But yeah, I don't know. It's like when I played the Chris section, for me, that just made me want to have a game plan as Chris. Like when he's walking around with the, what is it, like Hound Wolf Squad or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
And like that section, I was like, this is so cool. Just give me a game where they're doing stuff like taking down BSAA and these zombies and stuff. Like, I just want that game. That's what I want from Resident Evil next. So hopefully they do something like that. But yeah, I think overall for me, that's kind of like I think I've gotten everything kind of off my chest about the game, really. So I don't know if you guys have anything else you wanted to touch on.
I mean,
I was gonna say about the Chris bit though. That was always a weird thing because I remember because the scene before that you're like, oh, Ethan's dead, and I was like, okay, and I was a bit unsure where the game was going because I was like, don't just FPS the rest of this, don't
Right.
please, because I was also thinking in like I don't think I really get this with many other games, but there's like a weird way that you like play your game as Ethan. You upgrade his weapons, you've got all this stuff, and you kind of build him as like a character, I guess. You know, you upgrade him, and then he gets killed off, and the last section of the game at that point appears like you're just gonna be playing as Chris.
Mm.
I don't hate it for narrative reasons, because if it was any of that, if it was just entirely focused on the story, it wouldn't bother me. But that's why, like, to me, I was so happy when they brought him back afterwards, because I was like, okay. And then they have New Game Plus as well, and it just like it made me feel better about that Chris section because I enjoyed it, and you know, on its own. But I was like, if they suddenly ditch Ethan completely, it almost feels like the end of the game is before then, and then Chris is like a DLC almost kind of.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that was just a. I was glad that they didn't. You know, they brought him back, even if they did. You know,
Yeah.
call him an old man and everything, and that was their reasoning. But yeah.
Yeah, for me I remember like before I played the game, like some of the reviews were basically saying like the whole like last hour felt like a different game. So when like Ethan like died, I thought he like actually died, and then like would basically like be finishing the game as Chris, and then you see him with like, you know, like heavy assault rifle and like all these high tech military weapons, and I'm like, oh shit, is this gonna be like, you know, just guns blazing, like, you know, FPS shooter basically the rest of the game. So I was like, oh man, I don't know if I really like that approach, especially like, yeah, as Josh said, we're basically the whole game we were developing Ethan, you know, and like building his arsenal with his weapons and stuff. And then, you know, the Chris part was fine. I enjoyed it. Like it was cool to like have a section where you were really powerful and, you know, you could take down the monsters like really easily. You just literally like headshot them like a few times with your assault rifle and they're like down right away. So that was cool. And then in terms of like the plot twist or like the reveal where Ethan was like a mold creature, I was like really double feeling on that just because like on one hand I thought it was cool how they kind of like brought back Evelyn and connected it to Seven. But then at the same time I was also like, man, like it feels kind of out of place. Like it's just like it seems like such a weird connection. It's like, oh, like they basically at the start of the game they said like, oh, it's like if you haven't played Seven, like here's a quick little like reintroduction or like, you know, recap of what happened, and then I was like, and then it was kind of like like when everyone was talking, it's like, didn't you find it weird like all the things that happened to you, like you could survive that? I was like, it's like the developers telling us, it's like, oh yeah, like remember all that shit that happened like in the previous game, and like in this game you get your fingers bitten off in like the first hour, and then you get hung up on your hands. You literally rip through them. You get your hand chopped off. You get like stabbed multiple times. It's like, holy shit, like what the fuck? And then, yeah, it was kind of weird. Like I still don't really know what I think about it. Like I thought it was a cool like plot twist. I was like, well, what the hell? That's so like not what I was expecting at all. But at the same time, it's like it's kind of weird. I don't know if this is like the direction I'd want to, you know, like I wanted to see for Ethan. And then at the end where he basically just like sacrifices himself, I was like, okay, well, I don't really know what to think about this either. So,
Yeah, I think it was
I
a bit
don't know.
weird there. I think. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I guess like what Josh was saying, how, you know, like I have also been thinking about the game a lot the past few days, like ever since I beat it basically. So I guess that's a good sign that at least it had a, you know, like a lasting impression on me. But yeah, overall, you know, I feel like I've summed up my thoughts pretty well. I enjoyed the game for what it was, you know, like I thought it was pretty solid. Not my favorite Resident Evil, but I did enjoy it a lot. I honestly think I had more fun playing this one than Seven, just because Seven, I knew a lot of the events that happened already before I played it myself, whereas this one I felt like I just went through the whole thing, start to end myself, and yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed it, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've covered like most of our thoughts. I think yeah, like we said overall, like it's still a great game,
Mhm.
despite its flaws, and like obviously Josh really liked it. I think it has got something there that whether you liked Seven or you preferred the older ones, like you're gonna enjoy this game in some way or another. Like there is a bit there for every kind of Resi fan, which I think is great. But yeah,
Mhm.
overall, I really enjoyed it, like we all
Wait,
did.
can I just add one thing? Yeah, I just want to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
like, oh, I really like the mechanic of like with the Duke and just like the fact that I like the
Mm,
crafting and the inventory system a lot more than I did in Seven, just because I think it was like a lot more similar to Resi 4, which I enjoyed a lot.
yeah.
I just enjoyed the fact that you can like craft ammo so easily, and then like all the enemies you kill basically drop stuff that you can sell to the Duke for money, and you can use that to upgrades, weapons, ammo, stuff like that. So I enjoyed that aspect a lot more than Seven.
Yeah, I
I think the
think that
gameplay loop as a whole is much better. I mean that's one part that I like. It's more gamey game than Seven. Seven's more like a one time experience to me, whereas Eight feels more like want to replay it kind of thing.
yeah, I think the elements they brought over from stuff like Four was a great choice. Having like the food and stuff that increases your health and stamina and that kind of thing, I think that all was a pretty cool addition. Especially over Seven because you didn't have much of that. You had like the steroids you could use, but it wasn't like multiple different items. And then obviously the shop where you bought the guns and things. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I think they did a much better job of like the gameplay loop overall. Um, but yeah, I guess that's kind of it for our impressions on Resi Village, though. But if you have played it yourself and you've stuck around to hear what we thought of the game overall, feel free to leave them down below or join our Discord and we can have some discussion about the game further. Hopefully next week, like I said, Brandon will be back and he can give us his thoughts on the game and perhaps his impressions over the whole game if he's beaten it. But until then, I guess that has been episode 26 of Critically Incorrect. So thank you all for sticking around. It was a bit of a long one this week.
Yeah,
And obviously, thanks, Josh, for stopping by. And hopefully, we'll have you again, I'm sure. But
When
yeah,
Ratchet and Clank comes out is when I'm booking that time as like a come back to
an
play Ratchet.
IOU.
Yeah. Huh?
An IOU. Like we'll have to come on when you have a video. We'll be on there. That was why you came on
Oh,
the podcast, right?
oh.
Yeah.
Like what? Like quad commentary? Is that?
Exactly. When Ratchet comes out, you'll have to come back on here, and
yeah,
that'll be how we sort that one out.
true,
But
true.
yeah, thanks
Yeah.
for stopping by, everyone. And yeah, we will see you next week on episode 27 of the podcast. See you all then. Bye bye.
So yeah.
Ciao, ciao.